And it's been used in traditional Chinese medicine. It's believed to rid the body of heat and to dispel toxins. So this has been around for a long time. And I personally like it when we go back to looking at Chinese medicine. How did they use it? Because the culture's been around 5,000 years. There's been a lot of trial and error with a lot of these different botanicals, herbs, things like that. And so, yeah, why not reference back to how have they used it and how has it worked in their culture?
Empowering you organically, delivering content you trust with results you love.
Welcome everyone to another episode of Empowering You Organically. I'm your host, Jonathan Hunsaker, joined by my lovely co-host, Terry Ann Trevenin.
Hey everyone.
All right, today we are going to talk about Andrographis Paniculata. I know it's a mouthful. I've been practicing saying it right before we started doing this.
Over and over.
So what is this, right? Well, what's this crazy botanical that we're talking about? It is phenomenal for pain relief, especially if you suffer from rheumatoid arthritis. You want to listen to this podcast. So it's great for inflammation support, immune support, and Andrographis, which is, I'm going to just stick with just calling it Andrographis instead of going through.
Well, some people just call it Paniculata.
Do they? Well, listen, it goes by many names. So by doing that, I would like for you to tell us the names that it goes by in China, India, Japan. That's all you.
Nope. I'm not going to try and say it in English.
Chuanzilian in China, Kaomei in India, Senshinran in Japan, Hempedu Bumi in Malaysia. I'm just butchering all of these, but
I can barely say it in English.
But anyway, listen, it goes by many names, but this is a botanical that you really should know about. I think it's really going to do a lot for your health, especially a lot for pain management. Those of you that wake up and just pop a couple of ibuprofens or a couple aspirins, this is a natural solution that I think can give you all of those benefits without the side effects. And again, the inflammation, the immune system support. So let's talk, what is this?
So we're going to talk a little bit about the phytochemistry of Andrographis paniculata. Andrographis leaves are mainly responsible for its biological actions. They contain many bioactive compounds, including diterpene lactones, the main bioactive ingredient that imparts the typical bitter taste. Andrographis is an antioxidant that has been shown to be responsible for the herb's antiviral and antibacterial properties. Andrographis is also reported in scientific literature to reduce blood clot formation, help protect the liver, have anti-cancer properties, and manage inflammation with safe levels.
And it's been used in traditional Chinese medicine. It's believed to rid the body of heat and to dispel toxins. So this has been around for a long time. And I personally like it when we go back to looking at Chinese medicine. How did they use it? Because the culture's been around 5,000 years. There's been a lot of trial and error with a lot of these different botanicals, herbs, things like that. And so, yeah, why not reference back to how have they used it and how has it worked in their culture?
I think it's really interesting. We're so tunnel visioned, especially in the United States and mainstream, large, big economies, about the food we eat and plants and nature. When you get outside of yourself and you really look at the world, one of the things my girls and I love to do is watch documentaries. And the more we watch them, the more we realize, like, look at that tree, look at that flower, look at that plant. Like, there are so many plants, botanicals, herbs, things that we don't even know exist that people have been using for hundreds of years and
thousands of years
in medicine, in nutrition. And so I just think I love learning about things like this and understanding how certain things can really impact our body and our health. Because I do think sometimes we just get so tunnel visioned on like eating our mainstream food from the grocery store, and we don't think about all these things that are out there that Mother Nature provides to help support a healthy body, a healthy lifestyle.
Well, it's just interesting because we think about, medicine now is just what we've used in the last 100 years. What has been developed on the pharmaceutical side is medicine. But prior to 1900, medicine was the herbs that we've used for thousands of years, right? And we have the trial and error to show what did this do, what did it not do. How do you think we learned what was poisonous and what wasn't, right? Trial and error. What things can you eat, what can't you eat?
Somebody was the guinea pig.
Some people found out what can you smoke, what can't you smoke. I mean, all of these things were done throughout time, and we often think that medicine is the last 100 years of, these pharmaceutically created ingredients and pills and things like that. And so I think it's just good for us to take a step back and realize where we are in history, in life, and consider that there's all sorts of solutions, not just the ones that you see commercials for.
Yeah, we're so disconnected from the actual world and what surrounds us. So anyway, I love topics like this. So let's jump into what Andrographis Paniculata can do for our bodies, how it can benefit our bodies. One of the things that we look at when it comes to using Andrographis Paniculata is inflammation. Inflammation is linked to many disease conditions. Inflammation can be a powerful warning sign from our body that something's wrong, but chronic inflammation over time and not managing it and taking care of it is what leads to a lot of disease. And so chronic inflammation occurs when the immune system goes into overdrive and can lie at the root of many other unrelated diseases: asthma, inflammatory bowel disease, rheumatoid arthritis, autoimmune diseases, depression, cancer, Alzheimer's disease, which is a big thing that we're facing right now in our society. Inflammation, which manifests as swelling, redness, heat, and pain, is a normal response, as I mentioned, of our immune system and our body's way of defending us from infections and disease. But again, if it's not managed properly, it becomes a long-term problem. So something we really need to be aware of when it comes to our health.
Well, I mean, I think that, everything gets categorized like inflammation. So inflammation is all bad, but when you twist your ankle, right, and your ankle swells, that's good, right? That inflammation is good. It's swelling. It's helping hold the bones in place. It's helping hold things in place. That should be inflamed. That's a good natural response. That's how our body responds to stress when something gets stressed, like twisting your ankle. The interesting thing is, though, is that's how our body responds to all sorts of stressors. So even if it's an emotional or a mental stressor, now your body is releasing all of this inflammation to try to protect it. But we're constantly stressed, we're constantly going, we're constantly under this fight or flight mode. And so that's where chronic inflammation comes from. And then that's too much, right? So consider what happens to wood when it stays wet constantly, right? It rots. Inflammation is the same way. When we're chronically inflamed and we have all of this extra moisture surrounding all of our body and all throughout our body, it's causing us to rot, so to speak. And so that's just the understanding the difference between that acute inflammation and chronic inflammation, and why everybody's talking about inflammation now and all these different botanicals that can help decrease it.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's talk about the Andrographis Paniculata and why it's important when it comes to inflammation. So it promotes a healthy inflammatory response by blocking a powerful chemical known as NF-kappa B, which is known to be a key regulator of the inflammatory response system. It helps support a healthy and appropriate inflammatory response by reducing the levels of pro-inflammatory compounds that trigger the familiar pain and redness associated with inflammation. I think one of the biggest benefits we could cover today when it comes to this particular botanical is its anti-inflammatory properties.
Well, and so I think inflammation, again, it has that broad term, and it's like, hey, turmeric's an anti-inflammatory, ashwagandha is anti-inflammatory, but these different plants address them in different ways. And Andrographis is specifically really good for rheumatoid arthritis and joint pain and the inflammation that happens around there based off of what you just read and how it blocks and all of that. So again, it's great for inflammation, but let's talk about the specifics. And I think RA is one of those big ones. It's one that's very important to me. I mean, I'm 41 years old. I'm getting pain in a couple of my knuckles on my fingers now. I haven't seen a rheumatologist yet, but I'm pretty confident from the last 6 months that that's what's happening there. My grandmother was fully crippled from RA and passed away from it. So I know it's in It's hereditary in that context. So this is just a very important subject to me. And I think that it affects a lot of people. I think they have this joint pain and they wake up and they pop these ibuprofens, these Aleve, the Tylenol, all of that. And there's just a better solution out there.
Absolutely. Well, and also I think it boils down to usually ignoring inflammation looks like taking something to manage the pain. And yes, it says it's anti-inflammatory, and maybe it is for a small period of time, but you're just covering a long-term chronic issue instead of actually facing the problem and correcting the issue, which, as we mentioned, there are other things that go along with inflammation that come into play with inflammation. Chronic inflammation leads to diseases, it leads to massive health issues. And so it's really not something to mess around with. If you're constantly medicating yourself to take away some type of pain or inflammation, there's an underlying issue there that needs to be addressed. Let's talk about a few other things that Andrographis will do to help your body and your health overall. It boosts the immune system. Andrographis has been shown to enhance the immune system. For example, it boosts production of white blood cells known as lymphocytes, which scavenge and destroy bacteria and other foreign matter. It also triggers the release of signaling proteins known as interferons, along with enhancing activity of the lymphatic system. It also has benefits for upper respiratory tract infections and cough. It's been used for hundreds of years in traditional medicinal systems to treat upper respiratory infections. Modern research also supports this. One example of this, in a 2004 meta-analysis of the results of 7 double-blind controlled trials with a total of 896 participants, showed that Andrographis offers significant relief from the symptoms of upper respiratory tract infections and may even prevent them from taking hold in the first place. So this is one that I had no idea when it comes to this specific botanical, this specific plant, that it can actually help in that way too, which if you think about what that can lead to, upper respiratory tract infections and cough, that can kill people. That's something that can be very significant when it comes to especially health in younger children and older adults. And as you age, that can be a huge factor in the decline of your health. So that was one I didn't know. That was new to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this just goes towards the argument of using plants and herbs when you can to help heal your body. Because again, if you're taking Tylenol or Aleve for pain, you're just getting that pain relief, right? You're not getting all of these beneficial side effects that come from, if you take Andrographis, it may decrease the inflammation, which decreases the pain, but now you're also boosting your immune system. Now you're also getting all of these other benefits that come along with taking this natural plant, as opposed to taking something that was created in a lab.
And getting all these benefits.
Exactly. All these positive side effects, rather than the whole list of negative side effects we see from all the pharmaceuticals.
Yes, absolutely. So another thing is that it helps to heal the gut. It's been used for a long time in traditional medicinal systems such as Ayurveda and traditional Chinese medicine for treating gut infections. It's super important to keep our gut healthy. And in our show notes, you're going to see a lot of research around its impact on gut health. But we've talked so many times on this podcast, I can't even count anymore, about how important our gut health is in relation to the rest of our body, and how it's kind of the powerhouse for our body, with bacteria, with immune system, with digestion, all these important functions of our body.
I mean, it's your microbiome. I mean, and I think that's really the root cause of most disease, right? And most issues is if your microbiome is out of whack, if your gut is out of whack. And so, again, we've talked about it so many times, we won't go down the rabbit hole that deep.
Yep. The guts, it's like when we talk about the microbiome, it's like this little ecosystem in your body that's like the central ecosystem of everything else that goes on. And I learned that more and more as we look at that. So just check out the show notes for the studies around how it impacts gut health and why it's important there.
Well, and here's a fun fact. I think that the microbiome is 40 million cells, whereas our body is only 30 million cells. So we are actually more bacteria, parasites, different things like that, viruses, than we actually are us.
Interesting.
And so, it's a big deal that I think often gets overlooked.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. That's really interesting. I actually didn't know that. So the next benefit of Andrographis is for joint pain from arthritis. And Jonathan already talked about this. This is something that unless you've dealt with arthritis, you really don't know how bad the pain from this is. I remember when I was a little girl, I ended up getting a virus that impacted my joints. And one day it just hit me so hard. And my mom didn't even know what to do. I was like crippled in that moment from the pain that was coming from it. And we had to go to the doctor, get it checked out, obviously correct that issue. But I remember being little and just how painful that was and how much it hurt. And so I haven't dealt with this long term or as I'm aging with arthritis, but also watching people in my life go through dealing with arthritis and how much it can limit you in your life. Why would we not be taking things that can help to combat this issue? Arthritis affects more than 70 million Americans, leading to inflammation, pain, and stiffness in the joints and connective tissues. Over time, cartilage breaks down, bones erode, and joints become misshapen. It's extremely painful. Our modern understanding is that rheumatoid arthritis happens because of the uncontrolled inflammation that is typical of an autoimmune disease. In such situations, the body's defense mechanism malfunctions and attacks its own tissues or healthy joints for a prolonged period of time. An immune signaling protein known as cachexin, or tumor necrosis factor alpha, is one of the key drivers of inflammation. The Andrographis has been shown to lower levels of cachexin, which leads to these issues.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm pretty confident that that's what I'm starting to experience in the knuckles and my fingers. And you talk about the pain, and just bumping my pinky knuckle into something is excruciating. And I remember the first time I was like, what the heck just happened? Why does that hurt? And then it hurt on the other side as well. And then it starts hurting with other fingers. And so it's a big deal. And I think a lot of people suffer from it. And I think, and we've all seen the commercials, right? Take a leave in the last 12 hours and, blah, blah, blah. But that's not the solution. I mean, yes, there may be certain times when the pain is to a point where you may need something that strong. But taking things like that every single day, ibuprofen, Tylenol, even aspirin, higher doses, every single day is not healthy for your body. It's not healthy for your kidneys. There's better solutions like Andrographis. Now, I want to talk about, so we've talked about a lot of these studies, and I know we did another podcast talking about ashwagandha. I want to talk about the quality of the botanical that you're taking, right? So most of us, we're not going to go and go grow our own Andrographis and get it into our body. We're going to go buy a supplement. The challenge is, what's the quality of the Andrographis that is in that supplement? And so when we were looking at things, and I'm going to talk about our supplement Turmeric 3D specifically because it's for inflammation. When we were looking at different Andrographis to add to it, there were all these studies, and it was like, well, we could, I want to add this to this supplement because look at all these studies. Then the challenge came into is when we started sourcing ingredients, it went anywhere from a few dollars a kilo, to tens of dollars per kilo. And it's like, well, what's the difference? Well, the difference is the quality of that ingredient. Was it grown in a field that was over-farmed, that there weren't many nutrients and minerals and vitamins in the soil, and so it didn't end up in the plant itself? Was it organic or not organic, right? We've talked about the importance of it being organic. So after a lot of searching, we actually found a patented version of Andrographis that we put into our turmeric. It's called ParActin, and this actually has double-blind, placebo-controlled studies to actually prove its efficacy for rheumatoid arthritis. I've talked many times, right? We create supplements that we want to use, and this is why I was looking at this. I mean, they have clinical studies that show its efficacy for the pain for rheumatoid arthritis. They have clinical studies to talk about the inflammation. They have clinical studies that talks about the immune system, the gut health, all of that. Now, I'm not saying all this to plug our Turmeric 3D. I'm saying all this to make sure that if you're going out there and you're going to say, you know what, I'm going to throw away my ibuprofen and I'm going to try, this crazy stuff that I heard about on a podcast. Don't go search Amazon and get the cheapest $10 a bottle, $15 a bottle that you can get, because you're likely going to get something that is so void of nutrients and everything that you need to actually feel the results that you're not going to get the results you're looking for. So I personally like ParActin because it has all the clinical studies behind it. I know you can go to Amazon, you can buy ParActin as a standalone. Personally, I wanted more inflammation control, and so that's why we added it to our turmeric, because I'm already taking turmeric. So anyway, I just wanted to make that very clear statement that you get what you pay for, and really make sure that when you're reading all these studies about a botanical and I want to start taking it, well, let's make sure that the quality of the one you're taking is equivalent to the ones that were in those studies. Because if it's not, it's a waste of money. You may need to take that entire bottle to be equal of 2 pills, or 2 capsules of a quality one.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about ParActin. So ParActin is spelled P-A-R, capital A-C-T-I-N. It's a trademarked ingredient because of all the studies that go behind it. And just like we talked about the Andrographis, it helps promote a healthy inflammatory response in the body amongst other benefits as well. There's been over 30 massive studies done around ParActin to back the benefits and the results of what this particular ingredient can do for you. Many of them linked to some of the benefits we've already talked about when it comes to Andrographis Paniculata. So we're going to talk about a few specifically related today to tests that are run behind ParActin, some of the tests and studies that have been done behind ParActin.
And real quick, before you get into the tests, I want to clarify that they have an organic and a non-organic version. Obviously, we only use the organic version in our Turmeric 3D, but I think that makes a big difference. So again, if you're searching to take this as a standalone supplement, there's 2 versions. Take the organic version. Yes, it'll be a little bit more expensive, but you won't get all the poisons in with it.
Yep, absolutely. So let's talk about a few of the studies done around some of the things that people are suffering with and the reason why you would take ParActin, like osteoarthritis. There have been studies done around mild knee osteoarthritis. In a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled study, the efficacy of ParActin was assessed on pain reduction in 103 patients with mild to moderate knee osteoarthritis. Patients treated with ParActin showed a significant reduction in pain relative to the control group. Stiffness, physical function, and fatigue all showed a significant improvement with the ParActin treatment. Also, there's been studies behind rheumatoid arthritis. In a randomized double-blind and placebo-controlled study published in the journal Clinical Rheumatology in 2009, 60 individuals with compromised joints were given 100 milligrams of ParActin or placebo in conjunction with methotrexate 3 times a day for 14 weeks. Methotrexate is proven to improve RA symptoms, but long-term use can cause serious infection and liver damage. In this study, ParActin was effective in reducing the number and total grade of swollen joints, the number and total grade of tender joints, as well as improving scores on HAQ-52 and SF-36 health questionnaires. So you'll have to go read more about this research and why and what they did behind this, but this treatment was associated with a reduction of various proteins, including enzymes associated with cartilage damage. So huge benefits here for people who are struggling with rheumatoid arthritis.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is why we chose it. And again, I don't want to pat us on the back too much, but I'm going to. I mean, we really do our research and we only want to put the best stuff in our supplements. And it's why I'm telling you all about this ingredient that you can go buy on its own and you don't have to buy, our Turmeric 3D. But the studies behind this are phenomenal. And that matters to me, right? Because I get so frustrated with these crappy supplement companies that claim all of these, results you're going to get from their product, but they're just using generic ingredients, right? They want to claim all these studies were done, but they weren't done on their product, right? And they're not putting a patented ingredient in their product that has those studies to back them up. So again, I think ParActin is phenomenal. And I'm already starting to feel the effects in my body. And this is why we wanted to do a podcast to really share it with other people.
Absolutely. So a couple other places where they've done studies and research behind the ParActin is in fighting cancer. In certain laboratory conditions, a systematic review of no less than 139 preclinical and clinical studies shows the andrographis has anti-cancer effects on almost all types of cell lines in laboratory experiments. Furthermore, there was another test that was done in 2019 showing that a hot water extract of Andrographis could stimulate the production of specific components of the immune system and restore others to a more normal state. So here we have some anti-cancer properties going on, and we also have immune system boosting going on and really healing and supporting your immune system. And one other really important benefit of the Andrographis is that it can help to prevent Alzheimer's disease. We spoke about this briefly earlier on in the podcast, how rampant Alzheimer's disease is at this point in time in our society, in the world, and how many people it's impacting. And we actually have research in the show notes that will talk about how this can benefit those who may have concerns about developing Alzheimer's disease or dementia.
Yeah, I had one grandmother who passed from Alzheimer's and one that passed from rheumatoid arthritis. And so this is really one of those botanicals that I think should be taken on a regular basis. And I think it could produce a lot of stuff. Now I got to be really clear here, right? Because I've talked about our supplement Turmeric 3D, and we're also talking about cancer and things like that. Not making any claims that Turmeric 3D cures cancer, does anything like that. I can't make any claims that our Turmeric 3D does anything. I just need to make that really clear so the FDA and FTC don't come knocking on my door.
No.
We're just sharing what this ingredient has clinical studies proven that what it does, right? Not making any claims about our products.
Absolutely.
So that's really it. I mean, these show notes are very extensive. We did not go through every single one of them. I highly encourage you to go to empoweringyouorganically.com. You can read all of the show notes. You can see all of the references and resources there, transcript from this podcast. You can watch this podcast. You can download the audio of the podcast. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes. We would be ever so grateful if you subscribed on iTunes, gave us a 4 or 5 star review. It allows us to show up in other people's podcast feeds, and maybe we will reach some other people that are suffering from rheumatoid arthritis or other pain, and they listen to this and they get healthier from it. So your subscribing and giving us a 5 star could help people that you may never meet in your life. Simply by it showing up in their feed, they learn something about themselves and learn how to get healthier. So please do that on iTunes. It helps us out greatly. I think it'll help a lot of other people. I think this was a great podcast. I think there's a lot of information there. Do you have anything else you want to add?
Nope.
Thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you on the next show. And if you do want to learn more about Turmeric 3D, go to organics.com and you can find us there on the shop page. Thanks for watching.
Thanks, everyone.